got the whole world on edge. So let's bring Dave in and see what's going on. Hey, Dave, how you doing there?
I'm good. I'm good. Quite a day. The world has changed overnight.
Yeah, well, and as Marco was kind of saying towards the end, he wrote and predicted a lot of what was coming. We talked a few weeks ago, and basically it was as much as the Russians even then were still saying, "Oh, it's just a training exercise." Everybody knew they're going to invade sometime, probably shortly after the Olympics, and here we are.
Exactly. I think with all the leaks from the CIA and the MI6, which kept us informed of what the Russians were doing all the way. I think they were totally right on. They nailed it. They told us what was going to happen, and exactly what they said happened. And they told us about the red flag method that Putin was going to use, and they told us about the buildups on the border, about bringing in aircraft, about bringing troops into Belarus, about bringing ships into the Black Sea, which could land troops, and it was a fait accompli. It was a fait accompli. It was obviously going to happen, and all the denials and all the lies and everything else the Russians have said. Really, there was no reason, absolutely no reason to attack a peaceful country, which meant Russia no harm. It just makes no sense. And I'm sure a lot of people are shaking their heads, wondering why. Like, why did they do this? And the only person who knows that is Putin.
Yeah, well, they've now really passed a giant point of no return. Some people are still speculating, oh, he's just going to go into those areas where there were some secessionists that declared independence, but they're already been shelling, I believe, Kiev and moving out that way. I mean, some of it's strategic, but at the same time, I got a feeling he's not going to stop with just part of the country.
Well, I've probably everybody's watching CNN. Apparently, 16 different regions or cities or bases, facilities, military facilities have been attacked. They started out with airstrikes with helicopters and jet fighters, and they have advanced jet fighters. And then they brought in the tanks and the troop movements, and then they brought in their artillery, and then they brought in these really lethal weapons, these incendiary missiles, and these hyperbaric tipped missiles, which cause tremendous collateral damage. If they're, the fact they're using these alone is a war crime on an innocent nation. It just is beyond belief. And there are those, the theory that I'm getting is that Putin was around when the wall came down, and that destroyed the old Soviet Union. And the theory is he wants to revive it and bring it back. And as Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, said, what's next? Who's next? Will it be, if I was on the border of Russia, I'd be very worried. But again, the U.S., the United Kingdom, other nations, including Canada, are all reacting to it. The whole world. Biden was just on TV saying that Putin will be a pariah, but we shall see if these sanctions are tough enough. They have to be harsh. They have to be really harsh, and that's what is key here, because basically Biden is playing every card he's got. He's not a wartime president. He's not a Ronald Reagan. And as much as I love General Milley, who's a great joint chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I think he's a good man, and I think he has our backs on this. He's not a Curtis LeMay, and also times have changed. The West could very well be in decline.
Yeah, well, and now getting back to our domestic response, and I mean, Trudeau is in a difficult position altogether. I mean, we're not a military power. We have some influence, but limited trade with Russia and the Ukraine. There's not too much pressure we can exert, but still, we've got a large, particularly in the West, a population of Ukrainian immigrants and descendants. He wants to speak up on their behalf, but what can Canada do, or what should they do in this circumstance?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. That's a very good question. I just did a piece on that a few days ago, and I was a bit harsh on Trudeau. I thought they could have done much. They could have been much, much tougher. Um, as far as I'm concerned, some of those things that he announced should have been done already. And sending artillery troops in 30 days. In 30 days, this thing will all be over. What's the point? And saying we support our NATO allies, that should have been done a month ago. And also, and I bring this up in my column, the Magnitsky laws, which we passed in 2017, could be easily enacted against Russians who have a connection to either war crimes or human rights abuses. We could have gone after these guys 100 times, and not a single thing was done. The foreign affairs people did nothing, and Trudeau did nothing, and not a single person has been targeted by those Magnitsky laws, which are on the books. We can actually hurt them, but and there was a veiled reference to, well, we'll go after some of their people and some of their banks. Nothing was named. Absolutely nothing was named. Which, when you compare that with speeches from Biden and especially Boris Johnson, if you get a chance to watch the 10-minute speech given by Boris Johnson in the House in London, it was absolutely Churchillian. It was amazing. And he hit them so damn hard, really hard. And that's the way you deal with Putin. You hit him hard at the first go. And I think I was really impressed by that. I think Trudeau could do a hell of a lot more, And again, with our foreign affairs policy, it's been like this for years. We're soft on China. We're soft on Russia. We're soft on everybody. We talk a big game, but what do we do about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Those strong words from Trudeau meant zip. So I hope, the second round of sanctions are much tougher.
Yeah, and then beyond sanctions, we get into containment, I guess you could say. I mean, as you said, weeks from now, even if we send arms, it's going to be over as far as, it's just such an overwhelming force coming into there with Russia. There's concerns, of course, is this expansionism going to keep going? So I imagine we're going to see a NATO buildup in neighboring nations. I mean, that's some of the stuff that Canada contributes a degree to. And then we put some good feet on the ground in those exercises. But that just brings me back to the old days of building up a Cold War and having a border with people massed on each side. And wow, what a terrible time to go back to.
Absolutely. And one of my good friends, his son is in Latvia and serving with Canada and serving valiantly, I might add, we're all proud of them, absolutely, of those troops who are over there. They're doing their best and they're supporting NATO. But your question is actually very good. What do we do now, looking down the road? Okay, because we all know Putin is going to sue for peace as soon as this is over, and he's going to sue for diplomacy, and he's going to try and calm everything down and get away with this. And we have to not let him do that. But to get back to your question, what do we do next? Well, there was a recent study by the RAND Corporation. I think it was just announced recently. And the RAND Corporation, the RAND organization, I should say, is actually helping the United States government through this current situation. And they said that, how do you contain Putin? But also, how do you not get the Russians upset? How do you strike a balance? And they said that what you do is the last thing you do, or the last thing we should do, is move a whole bunch of NATO troops right to his border. Wrong. because that will just fuel the fire and give him reason to retaliate against those countries. So what they suggested, the Rand Corporation study, is that we place small batches of troop concentrations in these countries close enough to Russia, but not on their doorstep, because that is just going to anger them and feed into Putin's future plans, which we don't really know what they are. We're not sure. Does he want to go after these other countries? Does he want to restore Russia's greatness? Possibly. We don't know. We don't know the end game, but he may be playing the long game here.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got a lot of delicate and nuanced diplomacy to have to work on and deal with in the weeks and months to come here. But I mean, we've never seen a military action like this in our adult lives in Europe, and it's, you know, we can't help but be very, very concerned about it. So we'll have you back on Monday. We'll have a much better idea, I guess, on how this goes. Hopefully, as far as invasions go, it can be. I mean, it being pretty much inevitable that Putin's going to take as much of Ukraine as he chooses to at this time. I just hope it's with the least amount of bloodshed, you know, possible in such an awful circumstance.
Me too. I know there are pockets of resistance and there's fierce fighting reported. I don't think we know a hell of a lot. I just know what I'm hearing on Twitter, or seeing on Twitter and hearing on CNN and so forth. Pitched battles, but I think that eventually they'll just be overwhelmed. They'll just be overwhelmed. And I think in a few days, and God forbid, no more killing. Let's just get this over with, and I hope it ends soon. I have a buddy in Kiev who's reporting for ABC Australia, and he wants to. He's sheltering in place, and he's hoping to get out of there soon. He was reporting on everything, and he said Kiev is quiet. There's not a person on the street. But let me just say this before we go. There are protests in St. Petersburg and Kremlin as we speak. And if you go on Twitter, you'll see videos of those protests. And Putin tried to quash those protests by saying, if you do this, your future is going to be in question. We're really going to come after you. So I credit those Russians who have nothing against Ukraine, who are the brothers of Ukrainians, basically. And I'm Ukrainian, and I say that too. There's no animosity from Russians against Ukrainians. It's this man who is doing this, and he may pay a heavy price. Oh, well, I should say the Russian people will pay a heavy price. He's not going to pay any price because he doesn't care. And that's my final word on that.
You bet. Yeah, no, that's another interesting element. We just wouldn't have time to go into it, but we'll see how, I mean, resistance within Russia goes on this, because no, not everybody is favorable about this whole idea on the part of Putin, and he's going to have to answer to them to some point. And Russian politics are never an easy or straightforward thing. So thank you very much, and we'll be watching it over the next few days, and I'll talk to you again soon, Dave.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Take care now.
Okay, thanks.